Hey, everybody, what's up? It's your boy MJ. Welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience Before the Pour, aka 20 Questions with MJ. My guest today is the managing director of Rudd Collection, Napa Valley, Oscar Henquet. Oscar discovered his passion for the luxury hospitality industry at a very young age while working for his family's hotel business in the Netherlands. He's fluent in English, Dutch, French, and German. He received a degree in hotel management from the, how do you say that?
Maastricht, yes.
Maastricht School of Hotel Management, which was founded by his grandfather. Oscar received a degree in hotel management, and I actually just said that twice. This is why we do this before we start. So this is why we start. This is exactly why I do it before the pour. It gives me some bloopers. It was during a trip to New York with his family in 1997 that set his future course. He was exhilarated by the city's energy and rhythm. He decided to relocate there. Oscar's first job in New York was maitre d'étage, team leader, and private butler to Sir Elton John at the five-star, five-diamond St. Regis, New York. And today he brings the same passion for hospitality to the Rudd portfolio of businesses. Welcome, Oscar.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, man. So listen, to warm us up a bit,
Okay.
I'm going to ask you some personal questions. They're not really that personal. Followed by James Lipton's 10 famous questions from inside the actor's studio.
Okay.
All right? So the key is just to answer them quickly. First thing that comes to your mind. It's not a test. And we're just going to have some shits and giggles. You ready?
Good.
All right.
Let's go.
What's your favorite book?
Oh, the one I'm reading right now is actually a Dutch book. I'm trying to read English and Dutch books one after the other, so I keep my Dutch up.
That's good.
Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called The City of Silence. It's actually a fiction. It's a novel. So
Very nice.
I'm trying to do current stories, accurate news stories, and then I do a one to just relax my mind and do a fiction.
Yeah, I need to read more fiction. Everything I'm like, it's about business or marketing. Or,
I know.
So that's
Makes
a good
me
idea.
tired,
Yeah, it's a great idea. What's your favorite movie?
Ooh, I just there's a lot of them, but let's say The Godfather. I just watched The Godfather, the 50th anniversary with Francis Ford Coppola doing a speech before the movie in our little town in St. Helena.
I was going to say, because he has an estate out there.
Yes, exactly. It was a very special experience. Yeah.
Wow, that's favorite musical artist or group?
I'm gonna say Elton John. I have to.
You have to. Favorite food, last meal. What are you having, Oscar?
Ooh, I eat all the time, every time, all day, every day. Favorite food. I don't have a favorite food. As long as it's not bad food, I'll eat it.
Okay. Favorite athlete.
Ooh, that's a good question. Let's go with Michael Jordan.
Oh, I hate Michael Jordan. It's a long story, but I was a Knicks fan, and he kept Ewing from a ring. So, and he beat Ewing in college too. Actually, that's where it starts at North Carolina when he was a freshman. He hit the game-winning shot against Georgetown. So that me and Michael go way back.
You go way back
with my disdain for him.
Okay,
respect him, incredible basketball player.
Yes,
but just I'm be interested. Favorite cartoon as a child? So you have to have cartoons in the Netherlands as well, right?
Yeah, we had It was Donald Duck.
Okay.
Every week on Saturday, we used to get a magazine, Donald Duck magazine. That's what I would read. And I have some friends that are 50 years old. They still read it every week.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So in the United States, we often eat cold cereal with our cartoons. So do you have because I think in Europe you eat a lot more whole foods, but did you ever have cereal?
We didn't really eat cereal growing up.
Yeah.
No, I think corn flakes was the most exciting or exotic thing you could think in the cereal aisle. But it was mainly you would eat a sandwich for breakfast.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I figured. What do you do for exercise? How do you stay in shape?
My wife is a Pilates instructor. She has a Pilates business, so she keeps me in shape.
There you go.
For sure. But no, I'm a cyclist and I'm a swimmer.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Who's your favorite comedian?
Jimmy Fallon. Yeah.
Good one. Who would you most like to have a bottle of wine with? They could be dead, historical figure, whoever, or it could be whoever. Who would you most like to have a bottle of wine with?
I'll go with Pierre Lurton.
Oh, wow.
He runs Cheval Blanc and Echem. Yeah, he's got interesting stories to tell.
And interesting wines
and
to share.
Great wines to share.
Yeah.
So that's the one. You want to hang out with the guy that shares the great wines, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going to turn our attention to the 10 questions made famous by James Lipton on Inside the Actors Studio. Henry, so I was saying your last name. Oscar, what is your favorite word?
Favorite word? Brilliant.
What is your least favorite word?
Sure. Sure is neither here nor there.
I know.
I hate that word.
My wife says it all the time. I'm like,
is it a yes or a no?
I know.
Do you want to do it or you don't
like
want to
I
do
looked
it?
it up. Like
Sure.
it's almost like a blow off. Sure.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
And then with the tonality.
And the tone. Yeah. It's all about the tone with that word. So no, that word gives me the.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that one. What turns you on?
Passionate people. Yeah.
Conversely, what turns you off?
People who don't give a shit.
Yep. What sound or noise do you love?
Noise. You mean sound?
Yeah, sound or noise. Yeah.
Sound to me is something that's part of our life, and it needs to have a place. So if it's out of place, it annoys me. Whether that's sometimes I love loud sounds, but if it's in the right context, right? So
yeah, I like.
Does that make sense?
They're doing construction here, so there's going to be some sounds in the background.
That's
and that's just we can't do anything about that.
It's out of place.
Yeah, exactly. It's out of place. Just letting you guys know what's going on in the studio. Here it is again. What sound or noise do you absolutely hate?
Let's go with construction noise.
All right, I love this one, especially when I have guests from who speak multiple languages. What's your favorite curse word?
Curse word. It's a Dutch word, and it's. I shouldn't even say it.
No, because you got to teach my listeners some Dutch curse words.
No. I can't say it. It's too vulgar. But it's a 3-letter word. And it's
okay. I love that it's vulgar. At least. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
What other profession? That's a tough one. I'm gonna skip that one for a second.
We're gonna put a pin in that.
Yeah, put.
I am coming back to that, just so you know. What profession would you not like to do?
Being a lawyer.
Good answer. I was going down that road at one point. Good answer. Okay. Now, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Thank God he's here.
Now, normally we end there, but we're going back.
Okay.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I don't know, maybe an actor or a singer. I wish I would be comfortable on a stage and play a piano and just have a good time. I cannot play any instruments, and I think it would be super cool to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Very cool. So this was fun. If you want more Oscar, and I know you do, make sure you tune in to his episode of the Black Wine Guy Experience. Peace.
All right.
Hey, everybody. What's up? It's your boy, MJ. Welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience. My guest today is the managing director of Rudd Collection Napa Valley, Oscar Henquet. Oscar discovered his passion for the luxury hospitality industry at a very young age while working with his family's hotel business in the Netherlands. He's fluent in English, Dutch, French, and German. Oscar received a degree in hotel management from the Maastricht School of Hotel Management, which was founded by his grandfather. It was on a trip to New York City with his family in 1997 that set his future course. He was exhilarated by the city's energy and rhythm. He decided to relocate here. Oscar's first job in New York was maître d'étage, team leader and private butler to Sir Elton John at the 5-star/5 Diamond St. Regis, New York. And today he brings the same passion of hospitality to the Rudd portfolio of business. Welcome, Oscar.
Thank you for having me. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that summed it up very nicely, very quickly. That was, my last 25 years in 3 seconds. I like
know.
it.
I mean, we could go now if you have some. No, we're actually going to unpack that. But before we get started, what wines did you bring to? What are we drinking this afternoon?
All right, I brought 3 of our main wines from the properties that we have in Oakville and in Mount Veeder. So all Napa Valley wines. We have 2 separate estates, one up on the mountain for white wine varietals on the west side of Oakville, all the way at the top of Mayacamas Mountain Range, and then we have 2 wines coming from the estate in Oakville. So that's the east side of Napa Valley.
Okay, excellent. So let's. What do you want to pour me first? What are you drinking first?
Let's start with the white. Normally I finish with the white, but since
it's a new studio.
It's a new studio. I want to make sure we drink it at the right temperature.
They do have an ice bucket for me here, moving forward and stuff. So, but yeah, I've noticed that a lot of not a lot, but I've come across a few high-end producers where they actually prefer to drink the white at the end.
Yeah, I like it, especially if there's no food involved. I like to serve the tannins before the acidity. So what we'll do is we'll actually now, since we want to keep the temperature of the wine somewhat okay, we'll do the acidity before the tannins. So it's the opposite of what I would normally do, but we'll give it a little break in between, and we'll let our palate kind of cleanse itself, and then hopefully move on to the tannic wines. But the white wine is quite unique. And I would say even exceptional. I remember tasting it for the first time when I joined the Rudd family to manage their business. And I tasted it and I thought, wow, this is not a typical Napa Valley white wine. And I very shortly after that discovered that the reason why is it's grown in a place where normally people grow Cabernet Sauvignon.
Oh, wow.
So, business-wise, this might not have been the best decision of the family at the time, because we can get 5x the price for Cabernet as for Sauvignon Blanc. However, I think wine-wise was an absolute brilliant decision to plant this in the mid-90s to Sauvignon Blanc, Semillon, and Sauvignon Gris. So you're talking about high elevation for Napa Valley, 1,700 feet elevation, which is fairly high. You're above the inversion layer, so cooler days, warmer nights than down below. Now these grape varietals retain their natural acidity. You've got a wine that has a tremendous backbone, a wine that has great character, a lot of complexity, and you can age it for 20 to 25 years.
So this is like a white Bordeaux. Yeah,
it is like
a high-end,
exactly.
And is it like a classic blend? Does it change every year? Sauvignon Blanc.
It changes
Semillon,
slightly every
Sauvignon
year,
Gris.
but it's about 80% Sauvignon Blanc, 10% Semillon, 10% Sauvignon Gris. Concrete egg fermentation, a little bit of even terracotta, amphora, and some used to new oak. So super long finish as you taste it, and it's a wine that keeps lingering for a long time. It really, to me, this wine transcends the grape varietal of Sauvignon Blanc. I actually think we shouldn't even call it the Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah. It's gonna be red white wine. Then Blanc.
Mount Veeder white.
Yeah, Mount Veeder white.
Mount Veeder Blanc.
Yeah, Mount Veeder
exactly.
Blanc. Oh,
there we go.
you can have that one for free.
You're hired.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Tell you, podcasting doesn't pay the best, so I'll do a little consulting.
Well, there's always a job for you in Oakville.
Awesome. All right, man. So I like to start at the beginning. So let's
sure.
Start where let's talk about where you're from.
Well, I'm from the Netherlands. I was born in the most southern part of the Netherlands, which is a country that is probably half of the country is underwater, as most people know. It's below sea level. However, the part where I grew up and was born is the most southern eastern part, which is a hilly part. It's almost there's lots of hills everywhere. So beautiful, nice and green. But it's also where the Netherlands and Belgium and Germany come together. So growing up, I had to speak different languages because literally at the other end of my street they were speaking a different language. Wow. We even had 3 different wallets growing up because depending on what side of the street we were going to and buy an ice cream, we needed different currency.
Oh, wow.
Right?
All right, so it's just
this is before pre-Euro. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm dating myself now. But, yep. Those were the days.
So... like, what's that like? So when you go to school, do you learn the language? Do you learn it because you have friends who are or German or Belgian?
Yeah,
or?
a little bit of both. Spending time in the surrounding countries and hearing that language often made you, very quickly pick it up. And in school, they were paying a lot of attention to it. So you had these languages growing up, starting, 6, 7 years old. You had language class in school, and you had to read books in different languages and watch movies in different languages. So,
we're so lazy in America, man.
I know.
I
keep pushing my own kids. Like, come on, you got to speak another language.
Yeah, and I love meeting people like winemakers from, and they're like, oh, maybe from France, and my English is not good. I'm like, your English is as good or better than mine. My English, not even my French.
I know.
And so.
But you've got a beautiful country here, a very large country that you can drive through for days and weeks and months and discover new things, which we don't really have in Europe.
Yeah.
In Europe, you have to cross borders quickly.
But I think it's a catch-22. I mean, I think that's also a beautiful thing. Like, but America is big.
It's a big country.
And you cross state lines sometimes to go to different countries. So
I just flew here 2 nights ago. It was a 6-hour flight from San Francisco, and it's you're flying over an entire continent.
Yeah,
it's pretty.
That's pretty.
Special.
Yeah, it's so funny. Again, these things we take for granted sometimes.
Right.
Like you're right. I was just out in California a few weeks ago. I just flew across. You fly over the Rocky Mountains. You're flying over you fly over the Mississippi River, all this stuff.
It's incredible.
And you're in the air. It's pretty incredible. And so thanks for reminding me. I do love that when people immigrate here, like they have a certain different appreciation for it than a lot of us do. We just take for granted. So, small family, how many people in your family? Do you have any siblings?
I have one younger sister.
Okay.
Yeah, and then my parents, and we grew up in a small, very old Roman city, in the city of Maastricht, which is one of the oldest city in the Netherlands.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Built by the Romans.
Wow. I love this. And so your family though you come from a family of hospitalitarians. I just made that up.
Hospitalitarians. That's a new cool word.
Wow,
I'm going to write that one down.
And it just flew out my mouth.
I like it.
I know.
You're laughing at me too. It's like, wow.
No, that is a good one. Yeah, hospitalitarians.
I like it. Exactly. Yeah, I think it's. I guess it's in the blood, as they say, right?
Yeah. So your grandfather founded a school.
Actually, it was my great-grandfather. It started with my great-grandfather who founded the hotel management school, the only hotel management school in the Netherlands at the time, after he had started his first hotel. Yeah.
And what has the story been told? Why? I don't want to assume, but why did he start a school? Was it just so he had excellent staff? I would have to assume, but
not just for his hotel, but he had a broader vision. He purchased a hotel and turned it into acquired different properties right next to it and expanded the hotel over years and wanted to make sure that the whole city would flourish in terms of hospitality, because he felt it was a very special city, and he didn't believe in true competition. He said, we need more hotels in this town to attract more people to this town.
Yeah.
So with that thinking, and for him the art of hospitality, as it was for him, he said we need to make sure we educate people on this and how to run these businesses so we can grow this business all together. And that's what made him found the school. I mean,
even that sounds like a philosophy of hospitality, of service, right? Like he's uplifting the whole community.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's important. It's something that's, I think we can get into it later, but it's lost these days in hospitality. Yeah.
Yeah, because you
we'll
have a whole career.
We'll get
there. We got time. We got time. We got wine. So, and just so I understand this, did you go to university first, or did you just go right to the school of management?
It's university level school. So
okay,
that's right. I did that right after.
So it's like Cornell has a school hospital, right? So
it's like Cornell University.
Got
correct.
it. Okay.
Exactly the same.
Really cool. Super cool.
Yeah.
And so, you graduate. Where did you go next? What was your first job?
Well, during my
or did you do an internship?
Yeah, during my time in school, we had to do an internship, and about halfway during the education, they encourage you to go abroad.
Okay.
And learn about different. You could choose either. Not everybody in the school wanted to go. It was a business and hospitality school, so not everybody wanted to go into hospitality. Some people wanted to go and pursue financial business or something else. But I chose the hospitality path, and I wanted to have an experience abroad. I felt, growing up in the Netherlands and a little bit in France. My parents spent a lot of time in France. I had a family there with hotels as well. So I spent all my summers there, and I felt I want to see more in the world. And I had spent 3 months in Israel with one of my best friends at the time. His parents had a catering company, and they made us work there for a summer, and we could stay at their apartment and basically have a great time, but work super hard. So I enjoyed that, meeting and seeing new people and meeting a whole new culture that was foreign to me. So I said to my school, I want to do my internship in South Africa.
Oh, wow.
My parents had been there for work once, a few times, and the whole country appealed to me. The beauty of it, the people, the history, etc. So I arranged for an internship in South Africa, which unfortunately was canceled 2 weeks before the internship. At the time, they called it positive discrimination, meaning they wouldn't let any foreigners come in the country anymore, only give work to the local people, which I totally understand.
Positive discrimination.
Yes, it screwed up my my internship for sure, and I had a pretty cool internship lined up. So I was stranded in the Netherlands and was not happy with it, and my school had no alternative. So I sat home for a week, and the school put an alternative in front of me, which was a local company that ran vacation homes, etc., which is not at all what I wanted to do. So I said no to that. And a week later, the school called me again. I said, we just had a phone call coming from Chengdu, China. And I said, okay. And they said, well, they need somebody right away. You have 24 hours to decide if you want to go to Chengdu, China. I said, great, I'll call you back in 24 hours. And I went to the store and I bought a map. I had never heard of Chengdu, China. This is 1996. 1996. And bought a map, came home, put the map in the middle of the table and during dinner and said, so I got some news, guys. Said, I have an opportunity to go to Chengdu, China. Let's discover where that is. So we all looked at it, and everybody at the table was like, yeah, you should do this. It's a great opportunity. Jump on it. And, we got a couple of weeks to prepare. And I said, well, I got to leave tomorrow. If I want to do this, I've got to leave tomorrow. And all of a sudden, everybody was quiet around the table. And my mom processed the news, and she said, you know what? It will be a great opportunity. You should go for it. We'll bring you to the airport. Anyway, so I before I knew it, I found myself on a plane, and at that time it was 3 or 4 different planes. There were no direct flights, and flying, following the little airplane on the screen in front of me where we were going. I had no idea where we were going.
Right.
Yeah, ended up in Chengdu, China.
Oh my God!
Which was incredible. It was actually, well, it wasn't incredible at first, I have to say. It was very, very tough. I had the toughest time in my life. I think I met myself there every second of the day and was not happy with the situation. It was so foreign to me. It was so different. It was so, the scents were different. The people were different. The food was different. The language, none of it I could understand. None of it I had ever seen. And I was a tall white guy, 6'4", walking around town, and people looked at me as if I came from Mars. They tried to touch me.
Yeah.
So
I've heard that. Like you're like an oddity.
Yeah. It was a weird experience, and I quite frankly, I cried myself to sleep the first couple of weeks. I couldn't take it. I couldn't stand the food. I was very, very sick in the beginning. And I called my mom on Sundays. We had a time that we could call. It was very tough to call international from China at the time. It was all regulated and timed. So we had a one day a week where I could call my parents. And I kept crying on the phone. And my mom, after a couple of weeks, she said, all right, son, I said, you got to stop this. Either stop the whining, right, flip the switch, or you come home right away. So I kind of flipped the switch. I didn't expect my mom to say so.
Moms get you right.
I flipped the switch, and I had the time of my life for the rest of the year. So that's my Chengdu story.
That is, I mean, again, as we sit here, 1996, with the world, like China was definitely non gratis back then, particularly the U.S. I don't know what the relationship with Europe was. But living in the United States, we have such a melting pot to be, there's probably, you didn't have a Panda Express in your town. You didn't have a Chinese restaurant. and all the different spices. When you said, I'm like, wow, like what a culture shock. And even I've had friends, even going to China from the United States, so it's not the same. Like you're right, it's all different colors, sounds, fashion, noises. I mean everything. And then, like you said, being 6'4", white guy,
and the
kinda
hardest
stood out.
part, and I was open to learn about a new culture. That's how I've always been, and
Yep.
that's what I thrive on. But when I landed, the first thing they did is they took me aside, and I went there for the pre-opening of the first international hotel in Chengdu. So we were building a hotel,
Okay.
and I was a management trainee.
Okay.
The GM happened to be Dutch as well. He's the one who called the school and asked for
Wow.
somebody to come. So I ended up in this town with, at the time, 8 million people, but nobody had ever heard of it, right?
Yeah.
Huge town with no Westerners other than a handful of us, and I didn't know what to do. So it was the weirdest experience. They took me aside and they said, "Listen, we're happy you're here and we want your knowledge. However, these are the rules and regulations. You cannot do this. You cannot do that. You cannot speak about your life in the Western world. You're not allowed to communicate with the local people and tell them how you live."
Wow.
That was a very, very tough thing for me to do, because here I am trying to absorb a new culture
And how you do that's by sharing.
and trying to share,
Mhm.
exactly, be open and sharing about what we do, and this was not allowed, and at the time, and still is a communist run country. So everybody, you never know who's spying on you, you never know who's watching you. So we were told, this is the case, be careful and don't say anything, because we will know when you speak.
Yeah, when you said like there was one day a week you could make phone call. I'm like, is this an internship or was this like sounds like you're in prison? Like, you gotta wait for the phone. You got the weekly,
You could see it like that, but like I said, I flipped the switch after a few weeks,
and
I became so open-minded and actually had one of the best times of my life. Yeah.
So what was it like to be a part of opening like a first hotel? Like this is a big deal, actually.
It was an incredible experience for me as a young guy. I was 21 years old. I turned 21 there, and with such a different culture and such a huge hotel, it was a very prestigious hotel.
Mhm.
It was going to be the hotel of that city, and again, that city had 8 million people. It's not just a small town. It was
No.
an 8. But they started to build, an airport and radar at the airport. Boeing came in and built radar at the airport. So they were anticipating a lot more international travel. It's the last big city before Lhasa, Tibet. So a lot of people wanted to hop there, stay there, prep for their trip to Tibet. And so we had to build a super deluxe 5-star hotel that was going to be the crown jewel of that town.
Oh, amazing.
And when I arrived, the hotel was not ready yet. It was still under construction, and we had to hire 600 staff members to work in the hotel. And the way we did that, there was no shortage of labor. I mean, there were millions of people that wanted to work, and people lined up. And basically, we made 2 lines for the interview process. And mind you, I didn't speak any Mandarin. I still don't speak a lot of Mandarin. And we lined them up in 2 lines, and one line was people who could speak 1 or 2 words of English, and those words would probably be yes or no. And then the other line would be people who didn't speak any English, and that's how we selected front of house and back of house.
Yep.
Then my responsibility at the time was to take that line with the people that we hired from the yes and no line, the people that spoke 2 words of English, and teach them. We rented an old school outside of town, and every morning we bussed a couple hundred people to those schools, and we taught them English, basic English. Good afternoon, good evening, how are you, welcome, the basic hospitality words and basic conversational words. So we did that for a couple of months in the beginning and started training them a little bit of hospitality, because they had 0 hospitality skills. Then we opened the hotel, and we could finally practice with them in real life and fine-tune their skill set, and over time, hopefully, turn them into great hospitality people.
Wow, super cool. And this is like you're 21 and you're doing
21 years old.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. So after you finished in China, you returned back to the Netherlands.
Returned to the Netherlands, yeah, and finished my school, my education, got my degree, and then had to do another internship. Once school was done, they asked you to do another internship as a final kind of final blessing, and that one I could choose. And my parents had just taken me on a trip to New York City just before that, during Christmas and New Year's, and it was magical time in New York City. All the lights.
Oh
on,
yeah.
People are outside. Everybody's happy, singing. Cold, but it was beautiful and very cool. And I got off the plane, and I remember thinking, wow, I felt the energy entering my body. I thought, this city is incredible. This is where I want to live. I told my parents at the time that this is where I want to go eventually. So a year later, I came back, and I came back for some interviews. I was invited at the Waldorf Astoria for an interview, and spent the weekend there. And the more I spent there, the more I unfortunately didn't like it. I thought it was a huge hotel. I had this vision of the Waldorf Astoria growing up as a child, watching American movies. That's the place to be, in the most prestigious hotel in the world, and all the great presidents stayed there. But when I came there, I just felt like it was a factory with 1,000 beds, and I didn't feel it had. To me, it was out of my character and out of my set of passions. So I walked around town just on the one free day I had during the interviews, and discovered the St. Regis. I had heard about the St. Regis. I had read about it, and this super small boutique hotel, crown jewel on Fifth Avenue. And I basically walked in and went to the front desk and said, "Is there an HR department? Can I speak to them?" And the woman at the time was a Swedish woman. She brought me downstairs, and she knocked on the door of HR, and there I went. I gave them my resume. They allowed me an interview, and they said, "Do you have time?" I said, "Well, I'm leaving tomorrow night, but back to Amsterdam, but I've got a little bit of time tomorrow." I said, "Can you come in and do a practice run with us?"
Wow.
And walk with one of our employees and spend a few hours so we can see how you interact. Like, absolutely, I'll do that, and from there I'll go to JFK straight away. So I did, and then I had a follow-up interview, and a couple of weeks later I received a letter saying, "You're hired."
First of all, there's so many things about that story that are incredible, but like even now, like you actually had a paper resume. You didn't email it to them.
No email.
You know what I'm saying? Back in the day, right?
No
like
email. No. I had a printed resume with my picture on it. Believe it or not, that's not even correct anymore these days.
Yeah.
But yes,
like you were like it was an acting gig. Here's my headshot.
Yeah, right.
And the fact that and they just looked at your resume and told you to come back. Like did like obviously because you just walked in. Like did you know what did you get hired to do? That's what I'd say. Like,
Well, no, when I walked in there, when I was brought down to HR, I had the opportunity to introduce myself and do an interview. So they asked me what I'm doing, where I'm from, and why I'm there. And I told them what happened to me, and that I finished my education and I'm looking for an internship for 6 months at a minimum. And I wasn't pleased with what I saw at the Waldorf Astoria. It was not my kind of hotel.
They probably like that too.
So maybe that was the line where they said, "Okay, maybe we'll scoop
we can
you
work
up."
with this one." Oh, that's awesome. All right, and so when did you come back to New York City?
So I came back I finally moved to New York City and came back in February of 1998.
Okay.
Very, very cold.
Yeah.
I literally, the good old-fashioned boring story, but I arrived at JFK with 2 suitcases in my hand, and that was it. That's all I had. And I spent the 2 nights in the some airport hotel because I didn't know anybody, and I think it was a weekend, so HR department was closing the hotel, and then by Monday I went back to the hotel and did all my paperwork there, and through somebody else I knew through the school, I had heard that Astoria, Queens was pretty cool to live there and easy access to Midtown, and so I hopped on the N train at the time and went to Astoria, Queens, and walked around and walked into some realtor's office. They were renting some apartments. I saw some things on in the front window, and it was a Greek family, and we kind of hit it off right away, and they showed us an apartment at the time, and I had 2 other guys that came from the Netherlands, and we rented a 3-bedroom apartment. You know, it was $1,500 at the time.
Oh my God!
All,
I know.
all three of us.
I know. $500.
Yeah,
And
$500
and like
each.
it's so quick. Like you said, that's amazing.
But now we had an apartment, but no furniture, nothing, zero. I had a suitcase to sleep in, right? So the first thing we did is we bought a bed. Each bought a bed, and each in the bedrooms, and that was it. And then one of our parents, I don't remember who of the parents did it, but one of the parents sent us an inflatable couch.
Oh, okay.
Via mail, right?
Yeah.
So a couple of weeks into it, we received a couch that we could inflate and sit on in the living room that was empty otherwise. And little by little, every time we had a paycheck, you know, we bought a little bit. We bought a TV and a toaster and I don't know, a chair, and little by little we furnished the apartment.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So what were some of your duties when you started at the Regis?
So I was hired as a maître d'étage, as you announced.
The
in
little
the
bit of French.
introduction.
The little bit of French.
Le maître d'étage.
There's some words I can nail.
So basically, what that means is you're the director of one floor in the hotel. So the hotel had let's call it 14 floors. I don't remember. No more, 18 or 20 floors. And you're basically directing one of the. You have your mini hotel within the hotel. So you're the host. You're the manager of one floor, meaning about 20 rooms. That means making sure that they're maintained properly. You're guiding the room attendants. You're making sure cleanliness is up to par. Making sure the maintenance is there. You direct the maintenance guys and make sure that light bulbs are whatnot, the shampoo, the carpet, etc., etc. And then you prep the rooms for guest arrival. Then you welcome your guests as they arrive on your floor, and you become their personal person of contact for the
Concierge, butler,
anything from the time it was from polishing shoes to picking up their laundry to arranging a private plane to creating an event in the room, whatever it was, anything, right? So pretty cool job.
Yeah. So again, this is like 97. This is like pre-internet boom, pre-Yelp and all these reviews and and all these hotels that you start. For me, and also from a ton of listeners, what is a 5-star hotel like? I mean, I'm just getting a sense like I didn't know there's a manager of a whole I mean, like where did these are ratings from like professionals, let's say, versus like the internet. We're like,
this was a legitimate
Right.
like top luxury 5-star hotel, and mind you, this was the only St. Regis in the world, the original, built in 1903. Now St. Regis has become a chain.
Of course.
Now luxury has become more of a common thing to most people, I guess. But at the time, this was a pure luxurious property. That, the Four Seasons, the Peninsula, those were probably the top 3 hotels in the city at the time. If people had the means to stay there and spend, I think the cheapest room at the time was already $1,000.
Right. I was going to ask you, what was like the rate back then?
$1,000 a night. That's where it started. And
Yeah.
presidential suite, I don't remember exactly, but it was somewhere the $15,000 or $20,000 range for one night.
Yeah, and for dating ourselves, I'm older than Oscar is, but like, so again, this is as the .com bubble is coming up. So like, this is like real money. Like this is like before things accelerated because of that big period of wealth on Wall Street. Like that's some serious change.
Exactly. And we had people stay there sometimes for a week, sometimes for a month. We had people live in the hotel. We had 3 or 4 rooms that were permanently rented by a family or by a person.
Yeah. So during your time there, I guess Sir Elton John stayed on your floor? Or how'd you come to work with?
Yes, Sir Elton John I met in my very first week of work, and
Wow.
mind you, here's this little kid from the Netherlands,
I know, like,
right, in a town, tucked away between 2 other countries, has never seen a celebrity in his life, and met him, and he was the kindest person at the time. I was training with somebody else at the time, and he introduced me to Sir Elton, and Elton liked me right away, and he said, "Do you have time? Can I sit down with you and talk?" And we had a 2-hour conversation.
Wow.
which was purely a conversation about where are you from, what have you done, and I had just spent a year in China, and he was very intrigued by what I had done and where I came from. So we became very quick friends, I would say. I would call it friends now, and he requested I be his butler anytime he came to New York, and from there on we created a relationship like that. So it was very special. Yeah.
That's going back to like you said, I arrived, it's that tired story. You arrive with 2 suitcases, but then like within your first week, you like meet Elton John. He sits with you for 2 hours.
Right.
It's pretty.
It was a remarkable experience, and I'm thankful to him for the rest of my life for what he's shown me and how he supported me and for the world that he's opened for me, for sure.
Yeah. So how long did you stay at the St. Regis?
I stayed at the St. Regis for must have been about 3 years. Then I moved on to the Four Seasons, the other luxury hotel in town, and they were kind of opposite from one another. Those hotels, they were at the time somewhat of rivals, I would say. St. Regis was known as the classic old school money hotel, and then the Four Seasons was more seen as the entertainment money, the Hollywood.
The flash, the glitz and glamour.
Exactly. So I went to the competition, if you will, at the time to manage food and beverage there, and it was a whole different experience, a very, very different clientele. But I think my time at the St. Regis prepped me for that for sure, especially dealing with difficult people. Let's say that the high
Are you saying
demanding people,
celebrities and some wealthy people can be very demanding?
Sometimes, not all, but they can be very demanding.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think, if you're used to getting what you want, you're used to getting what you want.
Just get what you want.
I mean,
we don't take no for an answer.
Right. But I think, you said earlier, and I don't know if we want to get into this now, but like luxury and hospitality, like we're going to take care of the guest.
We'll take care of the guest. And the guest, luxury has always been, to me, presented as something that is rare, something that is not for everyone. And
this wine is not for everyone, but it is really delicious.
It is. I can see that. You're going on
I'm
your
going
second
for a little bit more.
glass. I like it.
Very aromatic.
No, with only 300 cases made, this is truly rare, and therefore it's a luxury. Yeah. It's handcrafted, it's hand grown. We spend 10 months out of the year growing this wine first. Then it takes another 9 months in the barrels and in the concrete eggs and the amphora to ferment and age and kind of add character to the wine, and then we bottle it, and then we wait still a little bit longer before we release the wine. So, and this is for a white. Our red wines, it will take 4 to 5 years before we release those wines. So, with only 300 cases made, this is a luxury for me. Every year I look forward to the release of this wine because it's something that reminds me of my past and growing up in Europe and growing up with very seasonal food and seasonal wine drinking, if you will. And by the way, wine was part of the table when I was, a teenager, younger than a teenager even. But we ate very seasonally because there were no big supermarkets. There was no genetically manipulated food. It's just whatever the farm brought you, that's what you would eat, right? So I remember vividly as a child, a strawberry was a luxury. A true strawberry, and I still have not found one since then that tastes the same as a strawberry from my childhood, because we had it once a year in August. That was the only month that we could harvest strawberries, and not every farmer had strawberries, so that was a luxury for us to have strawberries. And I mean, anybody in town would look forward to that time with maybe a bit of vanilla ice cream or some whipped cream and fresh strawberries, right? So then I moved to New York City. And I walked on, I don't know, it was Madison or Fifth Avenue, and I walk around the corner on that little corner deli. It's February 1998, and I see strawberries sitting on ice. I thought, wow, this is bizarre. I've never seen that.
They're from like Chile or something.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. So I bought a little pack of strawberries, and I looking forward to it, and I had them at home, and it was the biggest disappointment.
Yeah.
of
So
my life.
I'm sure to you, it's so flavorless.
They didn't taste like anything.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
a disappointment.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not a fan of the all year round availability of those kind of things.
And isn't it interesting that now we make a big deal? Well, in the United States, we make a big deal. Well, you've been here so long. We make a big deal about farm to table, but that's how just you lived growing up in Europe, where you lived.
Right. There wasn't. I mean, it wasn't a term back then. It was
Like,
just
yeah.
like, this
Now
is
it's like the chef does a seasonal menu, right? Like instead, like
this is how you eat, and this is also still actually how we drank. And people always ask me, "What's your favorite wine?" And I always have I still, after all these years, I have a hard time answering that question, because we didn't just drink one wine growing up. We drank very seasonally. The way our parents would cook or our grandparents would cook was with the seasons. So the food changed per season, and therefore your wine changed, because not all wine went well. We would never
talk
drink.
about food and wine pairings. Like
We would never drink Cabernet Sauvignon in the summer. Never. It would be something for the reserved for the winter months, as your cuisine is changing, as you're eating more stews and richer food and steaks and whatnot, or meat. We would never think about drinking it in the summer. So, we would drink rosé wines back, 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
wait,
Rosé wines.
rosé is not. It didn't just happen like 5 years ago.
I guess here it just happened, but not.
When that blog came out with the soccer mom. You mean people have been drinking rosés throughout antiquity?
I think so. I guess it was White Zinfandel before here, right?
Well, yeah, we have White Zin here. So yeah, I mean, it's so funny. I didn't even think about that. Your family being in hospitality. What did your parents do? I was just curious.
My parents, my father was a doctor.
Okay.
And my mom had a fashion business, a fashion store.
Very
she
cool.
was also a little bit of an interior designer, but she grew up she was born in my grandparents' hotel. And they later, my parents got divorced, and then my mom and her new husband started a small hotel in the south of France.
Oh wow!
They moved to the south of France, so where my aunt lived, who had a hotel there. So my whole family is built around hotels and hospitality.
Yeah.
My father's brother had a Michelin star restaurant, 40 years ago, and I would spend summers and weekends in his kitchen, literally peeling potatoes and carrots and whatnot until I was, had blue thumbs basically of doing it. Those are my first interactions with food.
Wow.
My father used to every Saturday used to drag me along and do shopping for the week, and we would go from farmer to farmer. You couldn't just buy apples everywhere. You had to go to the apple farmer to buy apples. And then there was another farmer who had nuts and this and that. And there was another farmer who, or then we had the little shops that would sell bread, little shops that would sell meat, a real butcher shop, and big supermarkets. They came later on, but that wasn't the case in the beginning. So I was taught from the beginning, it's okay, everything you buy, you touch and you feel. And if you want to buy a tomato, you touch it, you smell it, you feel it, and you pick the one that you think is right. So, yeah. I mean, those are maybe foreign things for now.
Yeah, exactly.
Here, but that was how we grew up. It's part of the DNA.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think about growing up with my mom, and we had supermarkets, we had ShopRite, and like. I didn't have fresh vegetables. We rarely had fresh vegetables. You bought canned. We didn't even buy. My mom didn't even buy frozen. Like people were buying canned vegetables here. Wow. Like we'd have apples or oranges and bananas. No exotic fruits. I used to grow strawberries, but like no exotic fruits. Like all the fruits in the world, we had apples, oranges, and bananas pretty much. That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's clearly like it's really food, wine, it's all in your blood. This whole hospitality, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
So what we were talking about luxury, and I had to have some more of the wine, but you were saying luxury to you is something that is there is a certain scarcity element to luxury. I think you were intimating.
So, yeah. I think it's. We call these, I'm going to relate it back to my industry, the hotel and the restaurant business. We call all these great hotel chains, the Ritz-Carltons of the world now, the Four Seasons, they're all luxury hotel chains. But I almost don't want to use that word anymore, and because you've been to one, you've seen them all. And it's almost like luxury for the masses. And I think there's a true opportunity in some of these breakaway brands like Aman and other resorts that really do it very, very well and very, very scarce. And it's yes, I know it's very expensive and it's not for everyone, but that is always what luxury has been.
Yeah.
It's never been for the masses, right?
Yeah.
So, and everybody can find their own luxury in their own category.
Yeah.
Like I said, a strawberry, people will
Yeah.
laugh at me when I come back with a strawberry, but that was a luxury, and it's not uber expensive, but it was rare. Not everybody could get it. So that's what I mean with the word luxury. Does that make sense to you?
No, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that is well said. Like luxury, there's levels to it, but there is a level that just a level that requires a certain amount of wealth.
It does.
You know,
it
and
does.
just being, I'm just keeping it 100, everybody. You know.
And that's why, growing up, we didn't go to restaurants every day or not even every week, not even once a month. It was something that was a special occasion.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved to the United States, and that's the difference, I think, in terms of eating out in between Europe, and although all of that is shifting now, the world is becoming one big, all of the same. But
Yeah.
In Europe, it was more people would eat out at a restaurant because there was something to celebrate. It was an occasion, and
Yep.
it was a festivity. It was
Yep.
it was an experience, right? And by the way, you would go there at 6:00 at night, but you wouldn't leave until midnight. It was one.
They're not trying to turn over the tables.
No. So when I came to the U.S., I was shocked. Well, people eat here just to eat.
Right. I don't feel like
just
cooking.
Do a quick pre-theater. What does that
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
right? What, in and out to a 2 or 3 Michelin star restaurant, just in and out within an hour and a half.
Yeah.
That was foreign to me, that concept.
No,
It still is.
yeah. I mean, it's turning tables. Got
Mhm.
2 seatings or whatever. Sometimes 3 seatings. And to your point about like hospitality, there's a place in my town that I used to go to. I won't name them. I won't put them on blast, but they're BYO, and they make their own pasta, and like it was never as good as the first time I went there. But then during the pandemic, everything changed, and when things started opening back up, we went in with a friend of mine. She's a sales rep, and this is where if your service, like if you saw the wines on our table, you'd have gave us better service. But literally, it came a point where they were like, "You have to leave in 10 minutes. We have to turn it." Like I've never been told I have to turn a table, and I've worked in restaurants. I've never been told you have 10 more minutes. I was like, we're never going back there. We haven't been back.
I can imagine. I wouldn't go back
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
No. One of my best restaurant experiences to date is still in Rome, Italy, where I went with a group of people, and it was not expensive at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this old school restaurant in the corner of a square. I don't remember exactly what it was called, but it was run by a couple, and he must have been 75, 80. She was probably even older. She was cooking. She was in the kitchen. She was probably 85 years old. One menu. You couldn't choose anything. You could definitely not say, "Oh, I don't like this. I don't like that. Can I have this but without that?" No, it was, "This is what we're cooking tonight."
Yeah, exactly. This is what
right?
this is the
And
menu.
you're gonna eat this, or are you gonna hit the road? And we were a table of 5, and I happened to sit on the banquette at the end of the table. And the tradition there for them was that they would serve the course, 4 plates, and then the last person, which happened to be me because of my position at the table, got the leftovers in the pot or the pan that was cooked in, right? So it was truly a shared experience. That to me was a luxurious experience, and it was not expensive at all.
Mm-hmm. I love it. So you go from being a maitre d'étage to food and beverage director. What was that like when you go over to
The
Four
Four Seasons
Seasons?
was definitely more, I would say, corporate, and at the time, St. Regis wasn't part of Marriott yet, and now it's part of the Marriott group. But at the time, well, initially when I just started, it was ITT Sheraton. Then it was bought by Starwood, and then moved hands to Marriott. Four Seasons was a well-equipped hotel company with several different hotels already, founded in Canada and Toronto. So they had a great program for young managers like myself, and they would what they call a high potential employee, they would fast track those people and really guide them in terms of management. How do you manage people? How do you deal with the unions? How do you in time management? All these, you get all these different classes every day of the week, which is pretty exciting. It was almost like going to school again while you're working. So very well-oiled machine, fascinating for me, and a great way for me to learn really a lot about doing business in New York City. Yeah, and dealing with unions in particular, because all the
I was gonna say it's all union here. You know what? I think it's a good time to take a quick break, and we'll be back. We'll be back with more Oscar Henquet, everybody. See you in a few seconds. Okay, we are back, and you saying how you were learning how to deal with unions in the business side. How long did you stay with Four Seasons Corporation?
I stayed there for about 2.5, 3 years, and it was a tough 2.5, 3 years for sure. I had to run departments there with 50, 60 plus employees that had been there for a long time and that had seen many managers, young guys like me, come and go. Right, so I was number 125 on the list or something like that. So they probably thought, here's another guy who's going to teach us what to do. And then a year later, he's going to move out, and So I definitely had all of that resistance in the beginning, but I very quickly showed him that I was not just talk. Growing up in my family's hotels, it was I was doing dishes when I was 9 years old, literally as a young kid, and then washing cars and checking people in and cleaning rooms, and I did all of it. So I wasn't just going to teach them what to do, but I was going to my goal there was to really try for people to become more efficient, because I knew I was not able to help them in a way that I could take their jobs away, because that was the biggest fear of somebody who has a union position is like, you can't do what I do. Well, I'm not here to do what you do. I'm here to work alongside of you to guide the process and see if we can streamline it to make your life easier, right? So once I gained confidence from people, and once I showed them a couple of tricks to not cut corners, but do things more efficiently and therefore use their time more wisely and become, in our opinion, a more productive employee, that's when I gained trust from them, and I became more of a part of the team, if you will. So I ended up becoming the first young manager there at the Four Seasons not to end up in human resources for an entire year. So I was proud of that title.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of you got that street cred from the union guys. You're okay, kid. Yeah,
he's okay. We're not going to drag him into the human resources office and tell him to leave.
Rep, exactly. Right.
No. I had seen that happen to many people around me, and I said, it's not going to happen to me. I'll do anything I can to. But that's a very humbling experience, right? As a young person. That was also the time when September 11 happened in the city. So we went from an ultimate high to an ultimate low overnight. So that was a tough experience to deal with, but it opened my eyes to many things, and I that's how I actually connected with my next job, and I started volunteering at Ground Zero to cook meals for rescue workers there, and in my free time, and I met David Boulay, who's a great chef here in the city, and he closed down his whole restaurant to cook meals there, and after September 11 was kind of dealt with, if you will, he asked me to come on board and help him reopen his restaurant.
Yeah. What had you, as a, at this point, you're just here on a work visa. What had you go volunteer at? What inspired you to go do that? What moved you to do that?
Well, I couldn't believe what had happened. I think nobody could believe what had happened there, and it was something that was so close to where we all were, being in the city and seeing what happened in the city right after that, seeing people come together. We always talk about that now when events happen, but I think I've never seen it like September 11, how people come together, and how there was such a camaraderie and a willingness and a power and a unbelievable motivation to get over this very quickly, right? I'm getting goosebumps while I'm talking to you now. I can't describe that feeling. It hit me, and I thought, wow, this is special. This, for a nation, for a town, for a city to come together this way and not let this get to us is unbelievable. And I said, I want to do what I had no money, nothing. I couldn't help in a certain way. I didn't have extra rooms to put people up, and and so I said, what can I do? I can help volunteer and make a meal for somebody. I can do that for sure. And that's what I did.
Awesome. Amazing. Thanks for doing that.
No,
I mean, that's just amazing. So, and then, I mean, and this is, I think, when you are genuinely giving of yourself, things happen. So, like you said, you met David, and then you went to work. So, was that as a restaurant manager, that's different from what you'd ever done before, correct?
No, it was in parallel to obviously my position as a food and beverage manager at the Four Seasons. So I knew a thing or two about restaurants for sure. But to me, it was really a big shift. After 6 years of working for big and the 2 top hotels in the city, but big organizations, I was just a number, if you will, right? A manager who they had seen many times come and go. And I thought, okay, well, I've learned a lot after these 6 years. I want to see how a business is run in the city when it's independently owned, not by a big company. So there's no big money behind it, no structure behind it. And David Boulay definitely had no structure. So he asked me to come on board to kind of structure his company and structure his operation.
And it was you helped guide them to like a number of 4-star reviews from the New York Times.
Well, he was the chef. I take no credit for anything there other than the fact that I did help him behind the scenes and in front. But it was a brutal. I only stayed there for 1 year, and it was a brutal 1 year of my career because it was I had 90-hour work days. Work weeks. Sorry, every single week I worked 90 hours. And remember, I lived in Astoria, Queens at the time, and I had to commute all the way from downtown to Astoria after working 16 hours. Yeah,
I tell people, everybody seen the Saw movies wants to work in a restaurant. I'm like, bro, that's 16-hour days, bro.
That 16-hour days.
Plus whatever your commute.
No food, no nothing. It's, you're on your own there. But I did learn a lot from David. I have to give him a lot of credit. He was an incredible cook, I think. An incredible. I've never seen anybody cook like him. He wasn't very well organized, but he was an incredible cook. And what he could do with food was pure magic.
Which red do you want to pour me while I ask you this next question? So I think it was during that time that when you went to work with David, it was like kind of cemented that you wanted to be in the private hospitality sector. You didn't want to go back to the corporate, correct?
Exactly. At that point, I thought I'm not going back. I'm not a corporate guy, if you will. I have a lot of personality and thoughts to offer. I don't want to have 20 signatures before I can get changing glassware approved.
Amen.
And I think the hospitality business, the restaurant and hotel business, is such a fast-moving business. Growing up in that business from our family, I always knew that. My grandfather always said this: if I can't sell that room tonight, it's lost. I'll never make up for the lost revenue. If I can't fill this seat tonight in the restaurant, I'll never make up for the. So there's a pressure every day to make sure you fill up to capacity, right? And that is a big learning curve, and that's a lot of pressure in the field that makes you work around the clock.
Yeah. So you do this, you do the year, tough year there, and then where'd you end up?
After that, I was approached by a British company, and they had 2 restaurants in London and one in New York, and it was called Nicole's on 60th Street and between Madison and 5th, and I had never heard of the place before. It had no real reputation, nothing. So initially, I brushed it off and said, no, I'm not interested, because I was building my resume with just like what I thought was the top end of New York City hospitality. And when I thought about it for a moment afterwards, after I kind of brushed it off, and I said, maybe I'm stupid if I brush this off so quickly, because first of all, I'm very tired. I'm exhausted after giving my all for 1 year at Boulay, and but that's not going to be my home. It's been a good learning curve, but I knew it was not going to be my home. Then I thought, you know what? If I think I'm as good as I think I am, I might as well work for something that is not doing well and see if I can turn something around. Because if I want to be the entrepreneur and the hospitality businessman that I want to be, then I, none of these other businesses were failing. They had great names behind them, and they had automatic business, right? So They didn't necessarily need me. This business needed somebody like me, so I felt okay. And I was very comfortable with the neighborhood because it was around the corner from the St. Regis in the Four Seasons, so I knew the clientele very well.
Gotcha.
And that's why I took the position there as a director of restaurant operations. Yeah.
And they won some awards while you're there. Best Brunch, New York Magazine.
We won. Well, we opened a second restaurant called 202 in the Chelsea market. This is right when the meatpacking district became hot and happening in New York City.
When it wasn't grimy anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Initially, I stayed away from the meatpacking district, and then a few years into my New York residency here, I became the hottest place on the planet. And we happened to have a piece of the action there in Chelsea Market, right in the front on 9th Avenue, and it was a very foreign concept to New York City. It was a clothing and retail furniture store with a restaurant in it. So you could sit at all the tables. You could buy all the tables that you're sitting at, all the chairs, etc.
Oh, wow.
So 202. Yeah. So very foreign concept, but became a big hit. It won some awards for sure. Had a great chef, Annie Waite, an English woman who became a dear friend of mine, and she oversaw all the 4 restaurants in terms of the culinary action. And I had an incredible 5 years with that company. Truly, it was a very unusual thing for me to do, but we brought Nicole's up to the place to be on the Upper East Side, and then opened up a second restaurant, 202. So I consider it extremely successful there, and great fun too, because I was able to really lean on my expertise and my connections and my friends that I made during my tenure in the hotels there, and I had to rely on all the concierges that I knew to send me business, right? Because that's how I was going to gain a reputation there. So it was it was a lot of hard work. It was probably the same amount of hours as at Boulet, but I was doing it with a different purpose and also a very different outcome.
Yeah. And so how did you come to work with Rouge Tomate? And I'm going to get into, I think is this the estate before the...
So this is the, let's do the Cabernet first.
Okay.
Let's start with the Samantha's Cabernet Sauvignon, which is named after Samantha Rudd, who now owns the estate. Her father passed away, Mr. Rudd passed away in 2018. And she was, from the beginning, from when she was born and lived on the property, she was determined to take over the property one day, and she did. So she followed in her dad's footsteps, and she's continuing the family dream there. And we're, thanks to her, we're still able to call ourselves a family business. This wine is named after her since 2008, and it's a pure Cabernet Sauvignon. So this is, talking about musical terms again, this is a solo artist. This is a solo performance, right? One person on stage here. In this case, it's Cabernet Sauvignon. Let's put the spotlight on it and really focus on what we can do here on the east side of Oakville with Cabernet Sauvignon.
Beautiful nose, gorgeous. You can just tell it's so. The color's amazing, just black.
The beauty about the wines from Oakville in general, I think, and especially on the east side of Oakville, we're blessed with volcanic soil there, with a great climate, so there's no problems getting fruit ripe in Oakville, that's for sure. Some people go overboard and work with overripe fruit. For us, it's the art of the master really to pick that fruit when it's at an optimal ripeness, so we can retain that acidity in it. So you're working with a wine, yes, that is on the bigger and bolder side, but it has, I call it levity. It's light on its feet. It invites you to drink another glass after this. It doesn't bring you down, it lifts you up. So it's got energy, it's got vibrancy, and that's hard to find in a Cabernet Sauvignon. That's what we strive for. So hopefully you agree with what I just described. But it's always difficult. Everybody has their own palate and their own preferences. But for me, this is what really describes these wines.
Well, I keep smelling. I'm like, smells so good. I was like, I gotta taste it. Rouge Tomate.
Rouge Tomate, Rouge Tomate came about. So at Nicole Fari, after being there, the company was there for 10 years. I was there for 5 years. We lost our lease on 60th Street, came up, and that was the original Copacabana place, by the way. That was a historic nightclub in New York City. And the lease came up, and the lease was doubled. So we said, no, thank you very much. And I actually started touring around new takers for the space. That's really how it happened by coincidence.
Oh, wow.
And I met this gentleman from Belgium who had this incredible concept in mind. And and he became the winning bidder on the lease. And he said, "I'll sign the lease, but I want Oscar to stay on here, and I want him to be part of the building." I'm like, okay. Anyway, no, we had several conversations, and we clicked, and I believed in the concept that he wanted to showcase, where Rouge Tomate was all about showcasing that you can actually eat healthy. Because remember what I said in the beginning, we weren't used to in Europe for people eating out so often, right? But here people would eat out, 5, 6, 7 times a week, just to have a lunch or dinner. So we wanted to make sure that we could feed people in a very, very healthy way and not having to worry what's on the menu, what they could eat and what they could not eat. Anything you would pick on the menu would be healthy, but also tasty. So, it was a big rebuild. The space needed a lot of work. It took us about a little bit over a year and a huge investment to kind of prep the space for the new concept. And we opened up in October 2008. With a 2-floor restaurant, 300-seat restaurant with about 300 people, employees, in the worst possible time. Right, that's when everything crashed in October 2008. So couldn't be worse timing-wise. But we put together an incredible concept. However, we had to switch very, very quickly. By January of 2009, we had to say goodbye to 200 of those 300 people, and really streamline the concept. Focus on one floor first, and then kind of very slowly, depending on how it was going with the economy and expense account and you name it, people eating out, and then see if we could bring it back to what we had initially intended. So that took us another year to get through that, for sure. So again, a big and humble experience. Everybody always thinks it's easy to open a restaurant. Everybody always thinks it's easy to make some money in a restaurant, and we keep forgetting that 90% of the restaurants fail in their first year.
Absolutely. You guys just need to go watch the movie Michael Clayton. So the wine, blue, black fruits, blueberry, pencil shavings, seriously, some serious dark chocolate, like 90% cacao dark chocolate, and but it's taut. It is light. It's and I'm like, oh man, this wine, for me, for my palate, like it's awesome now. Right now, steak would go, burger would just, but like somewhere around 8 to 10 years, this is going to soften. It's just going to be just a sexy, voluptuous beauty, without a doubt. So you talk about the concept at Rouge Tomate being, whatever was on the menu was going to be healthy. First green certified Michelin star restaurant in the U.S.?
Yes, correct. Yeah, we were blown away by that accolade for sure. But also I have to say we pushed for it. Was the goal to really get some certification and make sure that people understood that this is legitimate. This is not just, somebody coming up with a gimmicky concept. This is true educational, completely thought through, and we even got, the World Health Organization involved, et cetera, to really look at calorie count but also look at nutrition in a different way, because we all consume so much food on a daily basis, but a lot of those foods and calories we consume are empty calories. They don't give us anything. They don't give us energy. They don't give us nutrition, right? So we were looking at putting a menu together that's 100% nutritious. So every calorie you eat actually adds something to your body and makes you a better person. And that was a very, very unique. I think it actually was ahead of its time in 2008, 2009. Now it would probably be doing a lot better than back in the day, but because everybody's so health conscious. But back then we were pioneers. Oh, you like the wine.
I like the wine. And I like the fact you're pioneers. I mean, that's they always say the first person to the door gets shot or punched in the face. Take it on the chin, you set the stage, but I think. I mean, look, who is it? Is EMP now vegan?
It is, yes, very
I
brave.
mean, you set. I would say, believe it or not, I mean, they were around. The seed was planted. Like, hey, and it's just funny,
but you need a whole generation to shift, right? And you need people to think differently about food and nutrition, and we're finally getting somewhere. So it's pretty special. My biggest frustration now is that people don't think that way in terms of wine. Nobody thinks about what they drink when they drink wine.
Well, that's not true. We got the whole natty wine mafia. That's like,
well, that's,
who's too like, I don't want.
Let's not go there.
And then we also have the fake healthy for you wine. rhymes with shit vine, and talking about residual sugar in wines when that's not a thing unless it's a wine was specifically finished to be that way. It's so misleading, like you said, like not like these marketing plays and ploys.
Exactly.
That confuse people.
To me, the most important part is, and we don't think about it, is what you consume is what you put in your body, and that has an effect on your body in the long term. If you consume a lot of bad food, you're going to get sick over time. If you consume a lot of bad wine, you will get sick over time. And there is a lot of bad wine out there. The more and more I discover that, the more and more I take wines off my list that I do not drink anymore because of the way they're grown. Not necessarily because of the way they're made, but if they're not grown, if what I think is correct, and if they're full of pesticides and fungicides, it's going to end up. If they use Roundup in the vineyard, it will end up
in your body, and we know
in your body.
And it's been proven to cause cancer. They've lost a lot of it, just like it ends up in your body, and
exactly.
And these are I can't wait to say them, but this is really beautiful. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a Brilliard said, "Tell me what you eat, and I'll tell you who you are." Like it's and that's 100% true.
And know what you eat, and therefore also know what you drink.
Yeah. And what did let that food be thy medicine, medicine be thy food? Like literally, that's the best way to stay healthy is eat whole, nutritious.
Yeah. And in anything you do in moderation. I think that's if you keep it balanced in your life, you'll be a very healthy and you'll grow old, right? Just like the vines that we tend to every day and that we steward. It's want to make sure that, and Samantha Rudd is very committed to that family vision. I mean, this is a family business, and so the number one thing for a family business is to make sure that it's going to be there for the next generation. We need to make sure that we protect the land, that we serve it well, that we protect the vines, so that her children can then profit from it in many years from now. So it's our task now to do that and set it up for success, right? And then it's up to the next generation to even do better than we did. And that's to me that sums up a family business. And I see that in my own family with the hotels too. They're being handed over from generation to generation, which is pretty special. So we do everything we can in the vineyard in Oakville and in Mount Veeder to make sure that we do the right thing. That's why we shifted in 2017 to biodynamic farming. So actually the wines that you're drinking are completely biodynamically farmed. Before that, we were simply organically farmed. That wasn't enough for us. Like I just said, we had two reasons why we wanted to shift to farming. First and foremost, being a family business, we have to protect the land. Secondly, we want to craft a very, very site-specific wine, and a wine that only we can craft because we're sitting on this specific piece of land, and the neighbor is sitting on a slightly different piece of land and should therefore have a slightly different wine, right? So it's purely having a kind of a laser focus on what we want to get out of the soil. And terroir is the big word that we all use, right? But to me, terroir is, yes, it's the site itself for sure, but it's also the people that work the site, the people that are involved in this. Every person on our property, and there's not many, we're all together maybe about 30, 35 people, right? That includes the vineyard team and everything.
Right.
Everybody has their hands in each bottle of wine, all of it.
Right.
And doesn't matter if you work in the office, or doesn't matter if you work in the vineyard. Everybody knows what goes on with these wines because we all help pick them, we all help sort them, we all help make the wines and grow them. So it's a big dedication to that, and making sure that we do everything we can to protect that land, because the better we work the land, the healthier that vineyard is, the better the yeast is that lives in the vineyard, so we don't have to use commercial yeast in our workshop. We basically nurture the growing process along and then bring it into the workshop and then choose the right environment, the right vessel, and let this wine ferment. And that's it. I think less is more. That's always been my motto and our motto there. And making sure that we have a little bit of a hands-off approach. And the better we do that in the vineyard, the less we have to do in the workshop, right? It's like a chef. You're handing the chef a beautiful ingredient. Keep the integrity of the ingredient. Don't manipulate it. Don't smush it. Don't put 20 other ingredients in it. And keep it pure. I'm a purist. Yeah. Keep it pure. Yeah. Pure to me is best, and we've gone away from that in this world for way too long, and I hope we can get back to some kind of pure way of life and pure enjoyment. And that in itself could be luxury.
Right.
Just purity.
Yeah, I love that.
Luxury. Has nothing to do with money.
Right. Oh, 100%. Oh, that's awesome. So your star just keeps rising in New York. So how'd you end up at Monkey Bar?
That was by coincidence. After 3 years putting Rouge Tomate together, rebuilding it from the ground up, really, after it was Nicole's for 10 years. And after going through that big turmoil, financial turmoil in 2009,
Yep.
I was approached by Graydon Carter, the great Graydon Carter, Vanity Fair, and Jeff Klein, who owned the Monkey Bar, and they wanted to partner up with me, and they needed an operational partner, somebody that could really, they had this grand idea of bringing the Monkey Bar back. Monkey Bar was built in 1913, I believe, or something like that, and a very iconic place in New York, and with Graydon's knowledge of a Rolodex of incredible, well-known people wanting to come to the Waverly Inn, his other restaurant, building on that old fame of New York City. He brought it back with Jeff Klein, who's a hotelier and a great hospitality guy. So I became their man on the ground and basically elevated their service. They were hurting in the beginning. It became a big celebrity draw, that restaurant, but it was known for very snobbish service and not good food. So when I came in, it was my task to change all that. Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of fun. A lot of fun. Especially, no pressure, but the people that would fill that dining room every night was just it was the captains of industry. Any famous person you name was there at night.
Yeah, I'm blown away at on one level I'm blown away, but as if you've been listening to the podcast, if you guys listen to the whole podcast, you see it's in his blood, and it just makes sense that you'd be a person who could provide these this pure hospitality, this luxurious experience to people. I mean, it's like there's some people who will never make it. Like if you're playing like the Chicago Bulls of like hotels, you're like on that Chicago Bulls dynasty, like the level of
right.
play, just and right out the gate, like there's people who they just come out the gate in their sport and they dominate. And what's so interesting about hospitality though is like, we had Bobby Stuck. Bobby Stuck is another person who's just so hospitality driven, right? Like you guys, I'm just seeing like you just like really get it.
Yeah, I get it, but also laser focus and understanding what hospitality is all about, and it's all about making other people feel great, right? And that hospitality is not just a turnkey thing. It's not something that's the same for everybody, and I try to teach that to all my staff back in the days too, in terms of service in a restaurant or hotel. You have to tailor it to that person's needs, because everybody has a different expectation of hospitality, right? If you come in with your wife or your girlfriend, you have a different expectation as a business person coming in for a business meal, right? So your level of service, although you don't, there's a baseline of service, of course, but you tailor it to the situation. And if you can anticipate what that person needs, then you become a true hospitality person. Because to me, I always taught everybody else, you need to be one step ahead. You need to get into that person's mind by being around that person. And mind you, this all happens within 90 minutes because people stay for 90 minutes in a restaurant, for instance, right? Or one night in a hotel. You have to get to know them from the first second. What makes them tick? What are they sensitive for? What do they appreciate? What do they not appreciate? If you can very quickly, if all your sensors are open and on, you can pick up on that. And if you can play with that sensitivity, then you can get to people's emotions. And then once you get to people's emotions, you have a connection and you can perform true hospitality for them. And that's an art. In a way, that's an art. And in a way, to me, that's an art that's being lost because we've gone way too casual and way too fast about hospitality. And it became a big term, hospitality.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't even be a term.
Right.
It's an art.
Yeah. So many things get watered down, like you said, like even when you're talking about terroir, I think sense of place is a better word because like you said, everybody there is making the wine. I had another guest, same thing, having an estate down in Santa Barbara. Like they don't hire a harvest crew. They keep everybody year round. It's
Same
the same,
here,
same.
The person who grow those vines in those specific blocks wants to pick them too because he know those are his or her babies, right? And you don't want to hand them off to somebody else who comes in who gets paid for the task and basically cuts corners and does it too fast and ruins your fruit that you just grow for 9 months.
Yeah. And it's such it's a painstaking approach, but it makes such again, these are like we said, luxury can be just the sweetest strawberry you've ever had, but when even looking at the packaging on this, like the whole like they're very simple, but they're elegant. Like everything's floated. I mean, the labels
Timeless,
are beautiful. They're timeless. They're
elegant,
classic.
And like you said, a sense of place. They represent the soil. The color of this label is the color of the soil. So it couldn't be more focus on the place than that.
Oh, you know what I've been doing this whole time? We should have had these this way towards the camera. There you guys go. If you think after 5 seasons I'd have it figured out.
It's my first podcast.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Don't blame it on me.
I'm not blaming you. It was totally. If we had, new studio, if we had the window, he probably would have signaled. He's probably over there laughing right now. He probably would have signaled you to turn him around. It's just, I'm like, they were so mesmerizing. I had to keep looking at them.
I think maybe we're drinking too much. That's why.
No, I'm drinking too much. You're just on your first class. But you were out in the field earlier, so.
I was running around New York City trying to make sure we find some great accounts to nurture.
These I could see these are only, these are going to be in the top restaurants. These are going to be.
That's the goal. We want to spread the love a little bit and make sure we're in the places where people appreciate them.
Yeah, that's what I really get that.
And I think that's the most important thing for us is finding people who appreciate the wines the same way we appreciate them.
So, I mean, you're working with Graydon and Jeff, and they love you. They love you. So they introduced you to Richard Gere.
They did, yeah.
So talk about. You just keep. Like, where do you go from up? Oscar keeps going up.
Well, we were, with Graydon and Jeff, we were talking about possibly doing a hotel and this and that, and they knew hotels were my passion, and I came on board to help them elevate their monkey bar concept and make sure we got to where we wanted to. But ultimately, my passion was in hotels, and so they were super kind to introduce me to Richard, and Richard had a beautiful, very small, very high-end boutique hotel up in Bedford, about 45, 50 minutes north of here, and I had never been there, but obviously I had heard of Richard Gere, who hadn't back in the day. My mom definitely had.
Yeah, American Gigolo.
It was Pretty Woman for me.
Oh yeah. Officer and a Gentleman.
Exactly.
Those two. Yeah.
So I had an incredible first meeting with him, and we aligned 100% about hospitality. We talked about generosity. We talked about what it means to be welcomed into somebody's home. There's a generous welcome. There's a generosity of space and food and wine and an environment that's warm and top notch. So he had a very specific hotel in mind that was his role model, if you will, for his Bedford Post in New York. And that was a hotel that was close to where my parents lived in the south of France. And I knew it well. I had been there a couple of times, and I said, I know exactly what you mean by a place where, he wanted artists to come and the local community to gather and share intellectual thoughts and present things and become a hub for creativity, if you will, and at the same time offer luxurious rooms, great dining experiences. We had a yoga loft, so there was meditation. He was very much involved with that. So we had a chance of meditation and kind of check out and feel the purity of the property and really become one with yourself. So escape from the city, only spend 45, 50 minutes going up there, and you're in a very different world. That was the whole concept, right? So and it was it was already part of the Relais Chateau, which is a very small, prestigious boutique hotel association, and we were part of that. So actually it was right up my alley, and I accepted full-heartedly and said this will be a great next step, and it was a way for us to leave the city. I had 2 kids at the time. I had 2 young girls, and New York City, lack of space and this and that, so we had a chance to move up north and spend some more time outside the city.
Yeah. And then how long did you work with Richard?
I worked with him for about 2.5 years, and we had an incredible time. He still is a very dear friend. We speak each other often on the phone, and it's it was after a while, it became maybe a little bit too small for me. We only had 8 rooms or 10 rooms. I don't remember.
You need a little bit more action. I mean, your first job, you had at least 20 rooms, right? So
I know. And but these were obviously very luxurious rooms and very, high-end getaways for people. So, but it was a dream job, and I had no intention of leaving, other than the fact that I had a phone call from somebody called Leslie Rudd. I had no idea who he was. He was somebody from the West Coast, and he happened to have a vineyard, and he was the owner of Dina de Luca, which a lot of people in New York know.
Yep.
He basically convinced me that life on the West Coast is not too bad. So
I gotta just before you how do you get your number? He just got your number, like Well, people like that can get your number. I mean, probably heard about you.
People like him, they find my number. I had worked with some famous people, as now everybody knows after this podcast. But I've kept that quiet my whole life. So people did talk about me in a certain group of people, and my name must have come up there, and he found me. So he was looking for somebody to run his company on the West Coast in Napa Valley, and I had never been to Napa Valley. I have to be quite frank. I had never been there. I'd had some of the wines. So this is 2013.
Wow. With all this experience, you've never been to Napa?
Never been to Napa Valley. Wow. No. I've had some of the wines and
of course.
And knew where it was. And I always had this vision in my mind of Napa Valley being the south of France of the United States. Mm-hmm. Weather-wise, food-wise, wine-wise, all that. So, but I always fantasized about it. I'd never been there. So once we had some serious conversations, I did go and with my wife to look at it to see if this could be a place where we could live. And we definitely, I think, once we landed there and once we drove around, we thought it did feel like the south of France. The sun was out, the moment you cross the Golden Gate Bridge when you leave San Francisco, the sun comes out, the temperature goes up, and you're like, wow, this is a whole different planet. This is quite beautiful.
It is like Shangri-La, like you go through all that fog or the bridge and it just opens up.
It's one of those aha moments, it's right there in front of you, and you're like, oh yes. So it was an easy decision, although it wasn't a super easy decision. We had a hard time making the decision because all our family, but my wife is from Europe as well, is in Europe. So we thought the only thing that is tough for us is to remove ourselves even further from the family.
Adds another 6 hours onto any flight, or you have to lay over.
No, another 3 hours time difference. It's not easy to communicate because you're on opposite schedules now. So we did think about that for a moment, but all our parents said too, and all our families too, you guys have to follow your dreams and do it. And if if this is a train that comes by and you don't hop on it, you're going to be regretful for the rest of your life. So do it, try it, and see what happens. So we did, and it's been almost 10 years now.
So one thing that I think is interesting is that a lot of what you do, I get, like, you develop leaders, you help set, you create culture. But you're it seems like you have some superior business acumen, is what I would say. Like, I think a lot of people, like I said, you have a great chef, incredible chef, restaurant closed because they don't have any business acumen. Like, from going through your bio and conversation, like there is this, in addition to being able to create an environment where luxury lives. But you're a badass business dude. It seems like.
Try to
on a sneak tip.
I know how to work a P&L statement. Yes.
There's people like, P&L. What's a P&L? It's profit and loss, boys and girls.
Yes. Hopefully more profit than loss.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you want more P than L. So what was it like full on? I mean, I know you've done food and beverage, but now, like, kind of what do you do as so it says a portfolio business. So what else is involved with the Rudd portfolio
so
businesses?
At the time when I started the business,
I'm going to get into this,
you get in the next bottle. It's all yours.
I'll
be right behind you.
We ain't got much time left. Conversation's flowing.
Okay, well, and the wine is flowing too.
Exactly.
So when I took the job, the first question I asked Leslie Rudd, I said, "Why me? Why did you get to me?" And he said, I've been looking at what you've been doing, and I need somebody who can run my business with a very different mindset. I don't want somebody who has a wine background and winemaking mindset. And that resonated with me because I had several friends here in New York that had very successful businesses, and they always hired people that were not related to the business at all.
Yep.
And so it seemed to be a very smart decision on his end, and I accepted the challenge. But I did tell him, I said, listen, yes, I know the business side of things, but I don't know your specific business. And to answer your question very quickly, it was 2 winery estates, a restaurant, the farm, 2 grocery stores. We had Dean & Luca and Oakville grocery, and we had a distillery as well. So it was a large
Wow. Okay.
large
Yeah.
collection of businesses.
Wow.
This day, that the company doesn't exist the way it is now. Mr. Rudd passed away, and some of these things were split off and sold off.
Okay.
But that's how it started back in 2013. But I told him, I said, you know what? Once I take on this challenge, it's going to be a big challenge for me, but I have the bandwidth to do it. I just need a little bit of time to really know the details about these businesses. So I want to do in a fast track what I've done with my own family and my own background, is that knowing every piece of the business. So I happened to move there in August of 13, so it was perfect timing. I said, I would like to work harvest as basically as an intern. I don't want a cell phone. I don't want a laptop. I don't want an office. I don't want anything. I just want to be with our teams and our people and really work from the ground and see how we make our product. What is so different and unique about us? How can we make it even more different and unique? How can we build a workshop that makes more sense for a property, et cetera, et cetera. So I basically spent 3 months working as a harvest intern, if you will, to get to know our teams. And he agreed with it. He said, okay. He said, Oscar, the first 3 months are on me. I don't want to see you. Don't want to talk to you. You do your thing, but you come back to me with a full report. So the pressure was on, but I had an incredible time. I worked 3 months straight, 7 days a week, nearly 16, 17 hours a day again, but I didn't feel like it because it was such a new concept to me and a new learning curve that I wanted to take it all on. And I visited many other wineries in the meantime. I wanted to see what the competitive set looked like in Napa Valley. I tasted a ton of wines. I just wanted to prep myself for what was coming after that. So that was in a way, that was a luxury. That was a luxury for the family to allow me to spend a few months basically scouting out the playfield, right? And checking out our businesses and seeing, then making up our minds and making an educated decision on what would need to change to make these businesses even more successful, run more efficient, change. He was always on the edge of pushing for change and pushing for new things, and how can we discover new things, and how can we be on the cutting edge of our industry, right? So that creates a lot of pressure, but it also opens up a lot of opportunity. And he one of the things that's in front of when I sit at my desk and I look at the wall and I have a picture there, and it says a quote that he always said to me, and he especially said it to me when I was thinking about accepting his job. And the last thing he asked me, said, Oscar, what would you do if you wouldn't be afraid? And I looked at him and I said, if I wouldn't be afraid, I would take this job tomorrow. He said, well, then you go home and think about that, but that's what you do. So that always stuck with me. And every time I work with our teams now, and there's difficult times or there's decision-making times, and I always look at them, because a lot of people are hindered by fear, right? It's like, you don't want to do this because you're thinking about the aftershock or after effect, and what are the consequences, and what if we wouldn't have that filter? Would we follow our passion and our heart even more, and would we just do the things that we really want to do? I think we do. So to me, that quote has become, for the last 8, 9, 10 years, has become something that is very special to me. What would you do if you wouldn't be afraid?
I love that. And it's true. I have a friend who she has a song called "What If I Were Brave," and the lyrics are about what you would do with your life if you were brave. If you had the courage to do what you want to do.
Exactly.
I love that, and I love that. Here you are. There's this food and wine empire, and that's the interview question. What would you do? If you didn't fear. I mean, that's like the people you want to work for, not like the. Name a time when you had a difficult challenge, and how did you overcome it? Right, bullshit questions you get these interviews.
No, he definitely opened my mind to a very different way of thinking, and I've learned a lot from him, and I'm really very thrilled to have his daughter now in the company, and really kind of continue that same pushing for change, pushing for not change but evolution and
Evolution. I love that.
pushing our boundaries constantly and constantly thinking, okay, what can we do better? And it's you never, you think you put out a great vintage and everybody loves it, it's very well received. The next year we have to do better. We can't just sit there and think, oh, we got this down, we can do this. And no, every year is a new year. Every year is a different year. The most humbling thing of what we do, and that's what I like about it, is that we work with Mother Nature. So you have to be humble. It's not a machine. It's not a product that is made and we can, if you want 100 more cases, let's print 100 or bottle 100 more cases. You can't do that. This is what the land is going to give us. This is what we think is the best expression of it. And if it's done, it's done. We have to wait till next year.
Yeah. No, this will be like episode 80. I've done so. I'm trying to forget who said it, but someone said basically it's like, when you're making wine, it's a partnership with Mother Nature, and she's in control.
She's driving the bus.
Right, exactly.
You're just sitting, sitting in the seat and you're like, where are we going today? Can you open the window for the fresh air?
It's like that bus, if you see an American with the bus driver with the cigarette, get on the bus. So I have in my glass the 2018 Estate, and it says red wine. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. What's in this?
So the 2018 Oakville Estate Red that's the one with the brown label we've been referring
with
to
the soils, right? Yeah.
That is really the wine that we set out to do from the beginning. This is how we want to express the site. So we don't want to be bound with one grape varietal. If we would call it the Cabernet Sauvignon, it would have to be, 75% Cabernet Sauvignon. Mm-hmm. We don't want any rules and regulations to bind us and to bring it to keep us down. We want to make sure that we can blindly pick every year when we do our first blending sessions what is the very best expression of this land and this vintage. Whether that's Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, each year there's a different lens in how we see the property, right? Mm-hmm. Through different varietals, not different, we only grow 4 varietals, but different composition of those varietals. So this year, 2018, which happens to be one of the most stellar vintages in Napa, I'm sure you've heard that, in Napa Valley. Mm-hmm. It's probably the vintage of the decade, as most people call it. This is pure. This is we're talking about purity again. This is purity. This is, for us, really, we thought in 18, when we tasted the Cabernet Sauvignon, the Cabernet Franc, the Malbec, the Petit Verdot, we thought, you know what? Normally we add Petit Verdot Malbec. We didn't do that in 18 because we felt the Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc were so pure on their own, we would only dilute all that quality by adding something to it. So this is the first year in our 26 years existence that we did not add any other grape varietal but those two. Now that might change with the next vintage. You don't know that, right? We've never done that before. We might never do it again. But that's why this is a red wine. This is a rud wine, not a red wine. It's a rud wine.
I love that.
Right? Yeah. So we have to make sure that this is what our identity, this is our DNA, this is what we are known for. This is how people can recognize us. And it should never be by a grape varietal, I think. When I moved to the United States now 25 years ago, we talked about that in depth the last 2 hours. I never knew what grape varietal was in certain wines. I never knew Sancerre was Sauvignon Blanc. I never knew Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot were grown in Bordeaux. We knew the wine by the style of the region and the style of the house. We didn't know the grape varietal style. So these wines, I hope, would transcend the grape varietal itself and have something more to offer, have a place to offer. Before this wine is a bottle of wine, it's a place. And that's what we want to capture in the bottle.
So my mind, because where my mind went when you said that, I was like, so is there some bottles of Petit Verdot and Malbec somewhere that I could taste at some point?
No, there is not. But we did make Petit Verdot Malbec. That ended up in some of our second label wine in our Crossroads, and everything else was sold off. We have
I figured, you can sell it.
Sold off as bulk wine. So somebody else can have fun with it, and I'm sure there's somewhere.
Well, I'm sure it's somewhere there's a kick-ass Malbec that you're like, why is this so good? And it's only $25 because it's Rudd Estate fruit. You know what I mean?
They won't be able to tell you that.
Exactly. And they got an airtight NDA.
Yes. Yep.
Because actually, I like you said, I love what you said about the it's a place, and it's a Rudd wine more than because I'm not like Cabernet. So as a varietal, it's not my favorite varietal. But these wines are delicious. I just like delicious wines. You know what I mean? And these are both just, mwah. They're just so just.
Thank you. I see them
succulent.
as my own kids,
Yeah.
and you know they're part of the family, and we treasure them and we nurture them along, and then it's incredible for us to share them with people like you who are passionate about it and want to talk about it. And then, you know, we've missed it the last 2 years when nobody could get together.
I know.
Yes, families were getting together and they were drinking wine, so that's a good thing. But we, as producers and as growers, were not able to share these wines in the fashion that we would normally do.
Right, it's different because you ship a bottle. So that's another thing too. You ship a bottle and you do a Zoom tasting. It's two different bottles. It's not we're tasting this bottle right now, and if it's a little off, you know it's a little off. You know what I mean? Like it's different. Like it's so different.
I do not do Zoom tastings.
Yeah,
so
good
no,
for you, man.
it's in person or not at all. But no, wine is meant to be shared. We think our wine is meant to be shared, and you know. These wines, I would never drink them alone. You have great company with you. You'll have these wines invite great conversation and perhaps great contemplation too. So I think this is much more than just a beverage.
Yeah,
I see our wines as truly as food. You know, we grow it the same way a great chef would grow the vegetables in their garden and pick it when it's ripe. We grow our grapes that way and very meticulously, you know, make juice out of it and then transform it into wine. So I see it as food.
Yeah. 100%. So we're coming up after a wonderful long conversation that's just flowed so well. What are you most excited about at the future of Rudd Estate?
I think we're just at the beginning. You know, looking at my background, coming from Europe, where wineries have been in the same families for hundreds of years. We're only 26 years old, young, I should say.
That's very young.
We're just a baby.
Yeah,
so I think this is
not
just
even,
the
don't even
beginning.
qualify as old vines, you know what I mean? Like,
No, exactly. Vines are 26
Yeah,
years
exactly.
old. What's that? You know, it's a beginner's wine. No.
Imagine what Leslie's grandchildren, the wines that they're gonna be able to produce.
Oh, I'm jealous of those guys.
Oh, me too.
Those two boys are running around now, have no idea what they're running around, and I think that for them it's going to be the sky is the limit. So it's we're doing all the work now, and even my own kids, my wife, we're involved. You know, my kids will come and help pick, and my children babysit Samantha's children, and so it's a true family affair, and we all work there together and help each other and prepare it, do the best thing we can to make sure that we set this up for the next generation.
Yeah. Oscar, holy shit, man. Thanks so much for coming in. Just great to sit down, meet you. You know, shout out to Adrian Chalk. You know, he came on. He had such a fun time. He's like, I know some people you have to interview, and you were like.
Well, thank you, Adrian.
Yeah, nah, man, this was like so good, so good.
Awesome.
So tell people where they can find you, how they can be a part of what you're doing at Rudd Estate. Website, socials, whatever.
Yeah, ruddwines.com. We're in the heart of Napa Valley in Oakville, on the east side of Oakville, and we have a great restaurant called Press, which is in St. Helena. Probably about the largest Napa Valley wine collection in the world.
I know. Listen, we could talk. Like, we didn't even. I had Amanda McCrossan on. And she was like my first. I know. We just had this.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a small world.
It is. Yeah. It is a small world. And Press. It's the largest collection of event, and they have back vintages.
We're going back to the 1950s.
Yeah, I love that. And she said, you got Stony Hill shards and these wines. Let's just end all the bullshit. Napa Valley wines are age-worthy whites and reds. Let me just let you guys know.
Absolutely.
Okay. So yeah, we'll make sure we'll put that in the show notes. For all you listeners, don't forget to check out the show notes. That's where we put the wine we drank, links to cool stuff, links to where you can find Oscar and his team. And until the next time, here's to the Mavericks, the philosophers, the deep thinkers, and all you wine drinkers. Peace.
Cheers.
Cheers. Woo. Man, thank you so much.
Was that okay?
That was incredible. Incredible.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's open the door, get some air in here.
Yeah. That was fun. I haven't gone through my history, resume ever, I think.
Yeah, he's not even here.
He's gone?
Yeah.
Did he hit play? Did he hit record?
Yeah. Oh man. Oh man, but that
Oh
sucked.
shit.